Get off your butts and vape. 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 Get off your butts and vape.
Okay, I think we're live. We're live, everybody.
Live on somebody's channel.
We're here. It's Fog Life number 9. Number 9. Number 9. Number 9. Anybody remember that song? From the 60s, I think. Early 70s.
99. Ooh, your age is showing.
Yep. Beatles' White Album, for those of you that don't know. So, welcome. Hi, Lifa. Hi, Fresh. Hi, Stefan.
Hi.
Hey.
Why am I sitting down here?
I don't know. Why are you?
I just noticed that I'm like sitting lowrider. And I should
Jack yourself up.
That's the wrong way.
Jack
There we
yourself up.
For a moment there, I was looking at another solar eclipse.
Yeah, I know, right? It's beautiful. Oh, hi, Life. Where'd the eclipse go?
All right. We got some sort of audio rumble that I can hear.
Yeah, I'm hearing some bass tone.
Strange.
Oh, it's gone.
Now it's stopped. It had to do with Life adjusting his chair, I think.
I just adjusted the camera, so.
He does have a fully.
it's back.
He does have a fully automated chair that does rise up and down.
You know, it wouldn't be a Gizzard Stew show without some audio issue.
Here,
You know how that goes.
Yeah, it's gone again. Anyway, welcome everybody. Let's do a quick run around, see who's out there tonight. We have Kenny B is out there.
What's up, Kenny B?
Frank Randazzo, Kev W, Alan Gorby. Train Sonic is here.
What's up, Train?
And Vaping Swag has blessed us with his presence.
That's Swaggy Shane.
Jason Zastro. All right. West Cockring is here, and Robert Cromwell, Brian S. Some dude is here. Some dude is here.
JBC.
I like that name, Some Dude. Brian Enoch. All right. Pippa's here.
Did you see JBC out there? Hi, Jen.
I did. Oh, there she is. JBC.
Throwing some hearts at her.
She was all excited when she found out who the guest was going to be tonight.
Hi, Jen.
All right. So welcome. Tonight we have a special guest, Stefan Didak, has joined us this evening. How are you, Stefan?
Oh, overloaded, underpaid, going crazy. Sort of the usual that hasn't stopped for the past few years.
Sounds like you're living that American dream, Stefan.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Fueling the private jet and jet setting everywhere. Yeah, absolutely. It's according to rumors. Yeah, it's been really great.
What is the name of your private jet, by the way?
Oh wait, you have to name them? Oh darn.
Yeah, it's like a ship. You know, it's Chris.
Oh well, but they gave mine a little paint job. I think the name is Southwest.
Oh okay.
Oh okay.
Yeah.
Frequent flyer miles. You do get a few of those though, don't you?
You know how? You know
yeah,
how?
yes.
I was gonna say, you know how it's a private jet. You get to pick your own seat.
Well, yeah. In that case, it's definitely a private jet. Mm-hmm.
That's right.
And the leather,
Yep.
the leather that goes on your private seat.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Well, lately it hasn't actually been much time in the private jet. It's been more in. Is there such a thing as a private train?
Ah,
Yeah, yeah. Constantly all these trips to Oakland and San Francisco for some reason.
if you hit the observation car at the right time, you can pretend.
True. Well, I have to admit that I'm a dumbass. I took a train back from San Francisco to Pittsburgh, except took the wrong train, ended up in Richmond. And I had no idea, and I was on my phone, and there was like all this stuff going on, and all of a sudden they take the train into their hangar, and I'm stuck in there. And there's no way to get out of the train, and I couldn't force a door. And if I could force a door, there were like all these tracks left and right in the middle of nowhere. It took me 25 minutes to actually reach someone, and then they pulled the train back into the station and let me out. At this point, my wife is expecting to pick me up in Pittsburgh. So I called her. I said, well, I'm actually in Richmond, and I have no idea where. I'm in the middle of nowhere in some, like, literally a ghetto.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what? I'm just going to find the nearest bar, and I'll text you the address and pick me up there. Of course, leave it to me to find the most ghettoest of ghetto bars in Richmond. You know what? Made a lot of new friends, talked about vaping, had a lot of fun.
I was gonna say those hole in the walls. You think it's gonna be a really bad time bar. A lot of times, those are the bars that you had the most fun in. You're like, all right, I'll remember you next time I'm in town.
Well, the reviews on Yelp said that this was one of the local hangouts, and generally they don't like non-locals hanging out there. But actually went pretty fine.
Yeah,
Nice.
Nobody shot each other. Apparently that happens a lot, but yeah, no, it's
You were able to mellow.
all in a day's advocacy.
Oh, that's awesome. So I suppose you've been riding cable cars too.
No, because the cable cars are really mostly for the tourists. Unless you
not
really have
for
to.
transportation anymore.
No, and taking the muni buses is a pain in the ass as well. So if I'm in San Francisco, it's basically short little Uber rides.
Uber.
That is if the Uber can actually find me, because last Uber I had there, I was standing in front of the hotel, and the Uber was at the back of the hotel saying, yeah, I'm parked in between the two dumpsters, I don't see you. And I'm like looking at the map going like, you're at the back of the hotel. Do you see that little pin? I'm in the front. So yeah, Uber is hit and miss, but it's easier than dealing with exact change for muni buses.
Makes you a little nervous if they're asking you to come back by the dumpster.
Well, that too, yes.
Come back around to the dumpster. Bring your wallet.
Can you make sure you hit an ATM on your way back here?
Right, exactly, yes. No, it's just very, very odd. Then again, driving in San Francisco is a pain in the ass generally, so I don't envy the Uber drivers over there.
Yeah. Now, one of our viewers would say that you shouldn't take Uber anymore. A real cab driver would know where the front of the building is. And that's just a shout out to Socrates.
Generally, cab drivers know way better where they're going, and they do a better job. On the other hand, cost-wise, if you're talking about these small little trips that I take, it's like what, $4, $5, $6 Uber. You start translating that into cab money, and actually taking the cab for such a tiny short ride, it's you almost feel like really guilty. So automatically you want to tip them more, and then all of a sudden the cab ride's like $20.
Yeah.
Well, I think that whole thing will probably sort itself out eventually.
I hope so.
You know, they're gonna end up having to regulate Uber more, so they won't be able to go under the radar anymore.
True. Well, the interesting thing is that one of the lobbying firms that we worked with in California for a long time, Uber is actually one of their clients. So they understand the thing too about high-risk industries and controversy.
Right. So let's start out by asking you about Let's Be Real.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? What is that all about?
Let's Be Real San Francisco is the name, or actually part of the name, because the entire name spans 3 lines. Because under California election reform law, you have to reflect exactly who is part of the coalition, who is funding, who's the major funder. So you end up with this like unpronounceable long title. But Let's Be Real San Francisco is the name of a ballot committee. Since after the passage of the flavor ban, we were left with a handful of choices. One being, is litigation an option? Turns out we spoke with our lawyers, other organizations spoke with their lawyers, and litigation wasn't really an option. And doing a referendum was definitely on the table. So you start thinking about, how do you do this? Because you can't just like have a referendum without like campaigning for the ballot item. So what's the name? And eventually it settled down on Let's Be Real. And Let's Be Real San Francisco ended up being the name of the branding that we put on it. Today we launched the initial part of Let's Be Real Oakland, because Oakland's going to go back on their flavor ban September 19th, at which point they're going to decide whether to actually adopt it or not. Hopefully, Let's Be Real is going to be instrumental in making sure that other municipalities know that if they do such a thing, we might ask the voters to get in on it and intervene.
Mm-hmm.
Which can become quite a costly process.
Yes, luckily we've got a few stakeholders who are part of the coalition who have extremely deep pockets, and one of them, RJ Reynolds, has already spent, I think it's last I saw last week, close to $700,000.
Wow.
And that's on San Francisco alone by itself.
Wow.
Everybody's always like, what the hell do you need that money for? Well, first of all, you have to pay the people to gather all the signatures, and you can't just ask people to go out and gather signatures. You have to use licensed signature gatherers. So you end up paying a firm who ends up charging you like $5 per gathered signature. So yeah, you need a minimum of 19,405. We got a little over 30,000 of them, making sure that there's like no duplicates and all that. Then you need to hire a law firm, because you need someone to run the actual ballot committee for you, who knows what they're doing, who knows what the reporting requirements are. Then you're dealing with lobby and public affairs firms. Then you need a marketing firm, and before you know it, you're like talking real money.
Yeah.
Wasn't all going to be able to come out of the not blowing smoke coffer?
No.
That wasn't going to fly.
No. You know what? Doing things like referendums have always been sort of on our radar as like, wouldn't that be nice? But that is more money than I would say 3 or 4 advocacy organizations might manage to even gather over the course of 2 years.
So I'm aware that you had this pretty big win in San Francisco a few weeks ago. Can you tell the folks what that means, though? Because it's not quite over yet. They have to still decide whether to rescind it or to put it for a ballot initiative.
Correct. So the first thing you do in getting an item on the ballot is you have to gather enough signatures in order to qualify for the ballot and file for a ballot initiative. So yeah, that was success stage number 1. People out there told us there's no way you're going to get that many signatures because 1, it's California, 2, it's San Francisco, nobody cares, it's tobacco, look at what happened with Prop 56. Yeah, but Prop 56 had a message that was specifically tax the dirty smokers. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people smoke. The message here is you're denying adults a choice in an adult product that can only be purchased legally by adults, and you're taking away their right to use or buy a flavor. So the message is different. We absolutely knew we were going to get the signatures. So that was stage 1. We did a press conference in front of City Hall in San Francisco, announcing this, doing a few longer speeches because in every hearing, we get cut off to like 1 or 2 minutes at the most. One actually tried to cut us off to 30 seconds, and there's not a whole lot you can say in 30 seconds. So 3 or 4 days after filing that, the election department notified us that, yes, you have a valid amount of signatures, so you qualify for the ballot. Now, at this point, things are sort of calm in the waters, because San Francisco needs to decide whether, 1, they rescind the entire ordinance, 2, hold a special election, or 3, have it go on the ballot for June next year in the primaries. Now, special election is definitely not going to happen, because San Francisco is not going to spend millions of dollars having a special election with one item to vote on. They're just not going to do that. We also believe that the Board of Supervisors is not going to rescind the ordinance because they voted unanimously for it.
Mhm.
And since it's a unanimous vote, if they suddenly decide to rescind it, basically what they're saying is we're caving into the demands of minority groups, special interests, and big tobacco. Yeah, those are really not very good career moves. So they're basically left with one option, and that's send it to the ballot, at which point we've got a bunch of months ahead in which we can campaign and hopefully educate people in San Francisco and around the area what vapor is and why they should vote no against this. And this decision is going to be made, I think, in the first or second week of September, because they're in recess now, and normal session starts September 5th.
Okay. So, with that being in mind, I just am curious. You also have very similar votes coming up in Contra Costa, San Leandro, and Oakland.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So
yeah.
if you could just touch on how your win has affected those cities, do you think that that's going to be very helpful for what you were trying to do?
Well, we can't really measure that yet. The first thing that's going to come up is Oakland on September 19th. And I've already put the word out today that I need as many people as possible there to testify. It's pretty much going to be the last chance. Are they going to be swayed with what we're doing in San Francisco? I don't know. They might not be. I mean, this is a completely new situation that hasn't been done before. But at the same time, today we launched Let's Be Real Oakland. So under the same branding, Oakland should know that there is a very real chance that if they go the route of San Francisco, it might be put up to the voters in Oakland too. I'm not saying it will, but it might. Right. So there's that. Contra Costa is that battle is sort of over. Unfortunately, the flavor ban passed. It only affects the businesses in the unincorporated county, so impact is extremely minimal. And between the last meetings, we managed to get them to concede on the part of distance. So it has now become a distance-based ordinance where you can't sell flavored tobacco products within 500 feet of a school or a kid's park or any of that, which was sort of the best we could get in Contra Costa. Mounting an effort in Contra Costa, like let's be real, is almost not worth it. And especially since the number of stakeholders are it's like what, 4 or 5 affected shops at this point, and most of them are like gas stations and 7-Elevens. It just economically, it's just not worth it. Then we've got San Leandro. They're coming back in September again on their flavor ban. I don't know. Let's be real, San Leandro. I can sort of see it happen. And the last one seems to have stalled. Palo Alto was looking at a flavor ban as well, except the last I heard was that the city attorney was still rewriting language based on the model ordinance that yeah, let me get this out of the way. For people who think that these flavor bans were written by boards of supervisors or city council people because some sort of shitty label was used in a picture on Twitter. No, these ordinances were written by ChangeLab Solutions in Oakland, which is a think tank that likes to affect behavioral change in communities. And they received $4.1 million from the Robert Woods Johnson Foundation, the charitable arm of Johnson & Johnson, who apparently is losing a lot of money on sales of patches and gum and other NRTs. So yeah, that's how those ordinances come into existence. They're then pushed by ALA, Heart, Lung, the body parts groups. And what the lawyer in the city attorney in Palo Alto was doing was basically rewriting the model ordinance into what they felt was more fitting language, except hasn't been introduced. It hasn't gone anywhere. So I have no idea what the status on that is, but it's entirely possible that they decided, well, let's not do this.
Yeah. Well, I would think that would be directly because of what you guys accomplished in San Francisco. I mean, that
I certainly hope so, because this is
over it.
This is a signal that has never been sent before, and what the message of the signal is not so much the fact that they're banning menthol cigarettes, because well, they're part of it. The message is San Francisco has been great on harm reduction. San Francisco has been preaching harm reduction to other cities around it, except on this particular issue. They're refusing to accept the harm reduction elements of vaping. So that is pretty much what the every single meeting was about that. And every single meeting, the legislators made it about menthol cigarettes. And we were just thrown in across as other tobacco products.
Yeah, that's one of the things that, from reading minutes and whatnot, that's one of the things I definitely got, that vaping was not the intended target. It certainly got hit, but that was never what they were really after.
Well, they were really after it, but here's the funny thing: if you make it all about vapor, you're facing a very difficult argument, because CDC data is showing that youth uptake is down, youth smoking is down. So, you know, the whole gateway effect and all the other bullshit arguments, okay, you can wipe those off the table. There's real data there. So what do you use from their perspective to make it sound as bad as possible? Menthol cigarettes.
Right.
Because if you focus on...
They tuck it behind
and the other... Right, and the thing that most people, and most people haven't been in the meetings, they haven't been at the hearings. Some people have seen some of the videos, but what a lot of people don't realize is that this has not turned into just a political debate on the merits of vaping or the dangers of smoking. In specifically Oakland and San Francisco, this has become a racial political debate. In the worst possible form. I mean, I was in one of the meetings, and the people from the Arab American Grocers Association were basically arguing their economic point of view, if they can't sell tobacco products anymore, blah, blah, blah. And Malia Cohen literally said, well, your products are killing my people, but then again, you people like killing people. If you look at things that were said by the African American tobacco control organizations that were present at most of these hearings, it was all about menthol cigarettes are an invention by big tobacco companies as a means to commit genocide against our race. Like, yes, at some point we had a retired former police officer who made the arguments about illegal market, black market for cigarettes, and refer to situations in New York. Now, I think pretty much everybody knows that, I think it was, 2 or 3 years ago, guy got killed by the cops in New York for selling loose cigarettes on the street, because that's what happens in New York. You sell loose cigarettes on the street. So anyway, that situation was brought up, and Malia Cohen immediately started accusing our retired police officer of being a racist, because the guy that was killed was black. Like, what does that have anything to do with anything?
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been a very interesting battle, where you can see that in order for San Francisco to and even Oakland to get their way, they pitch different minority groups against each other. And that is a very vile game just to get your ideology of banning menthol cigarettes in, along with other flavored vapor products.
Yeah. Now the question I got is, okay, so they're doing all flavored tobacco. Does that mean Johnson & Johnson's going to take a loss on their gum because every single one of them has tobacco nicotine in it and they're flavored?
Yeah, unfortunately, they have a very nice loophole because if you look at all the language, technically, you're not a tobacco product if you are approved by the FDA as a medical cessation drug or device. So with these things being approved as cessation products, they don't fall under tobacco products, so they're not considered part of the other tobacco products in the flavor bans either. Yeah.
Okay, and the other question I got for going back to San Francisco. Okay, so all of this was supposed to go into effect in December, right?
Originally December, based on what the Grocers Association put forward as arguments, they decided we're going to give you until April next year. Except what's going to happen now is if they rescind it, it's pretty much done and over with. If it goes to the ballot, the entire implementation of the ordinance will be suspended until the ballot, until the election's over. So at this point, nothing's going to happen until after June next year.
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking because if it happens before that ballot happens, even if there's a 2-month gap in there, people are going to lose the fight on it because it's already happened.
Right. Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. Ordinance is basically suspended. Once they decide it goes on the ballot, it's suspended until the vote happens. I mean, that's sort of part of mitigating the damage that otherwise would occur, because trust me, none of these small businesses could survive if they had 3 months in which they couldn't sell their products, and especially for the vapor retailers who depend 100% on vapor products.
Now, the other question I have is, if they say flavored, that's all the e-liquid in that city, because even tobacco flavor is flavored.
Yes, I made that argument. I took it out of one of my public arguments because didn't have enough time. I made the argument in San Leandro in Oakland, basically saying tobacco flavor in vapor products is not a flavor that comes straight from the tobacco, because the nicotine in there it doesn't have a flavor. On top of that, most tobacco flavors are not single tobacco note flavors. They contain things like bourbon, vanilla, butterscotch, exactly. So, whoops, restart, no, snooze. Windows update.
There you go.
So yeah, there is no tobacco flavor per se, and based on their language saying characterizing flavors, it stands to reason that anything that is not a 100% tobacco flavor but has other notes added to it would be characterizing as a flavor. So yeah, my argument was you're banning all of these vapor products. Of course, we had a lot of other groups, because part of the work I've been doing the past months is building coalitions between other stakeholders who are not particularly 100% vapor oriented. So grocers associations, gas station associations. And we had a really, really nice group of Black people who are menthol cigarette smokers. And they came up with the argument that this was just another tax for them. And it was a racist angle, because you take away the flavor that you say statistically we prefer, but you keep selling the flavor that white people prefer. So they turned the whole racial argument back onto the city councils, which was really very interesting to see.
Might as well, you know.
Oh yeah, and they came out in full force and holding their signs, and yes, they were fun. And here's the thing. Even though we're all vapors, especially if you're like in the front lines of advocacy, everybody always expects you to be like an anti-smoker. I'm not an anti-smoker. I want these products available for people who use them and who might still need them in the future. But I mean, being an anti-smoker would put us in the camp with our enemies. So yeah, it was interesting to see groups of smokers and groups of vapors actually interact. And I've got a few emails to follow up on still from some of the smokers going like, yeah, this whole vaping thing, I want to know more about it. So sort of an extra bonus thing in the middle of everything.
Yeah. Well, when it comes down to it, you're not fighting for just vapors. You're fighting for a whole city to be able to choose what they want to choose.
Right. It's about freedom of choice and allowing adults to do what adults want to do as long as it revolves around legal products. And you know what? Unfortunately, mental cigarettes are also legal products. However, I'm pretty free in what I can do and what I can say. So even in the speech on the steps of San Francisco City Hall, I made some really harsh comments about death and disease from combustible tobacco, and I do not address issues on menthol cigarettes whatsoever because that's not our fight.
No.
But when it comes to freedom of choice, yes, that's definitely something I would throw out there.
Yep.
With the FDA acknowledging the harm reduction potential of these new vapor technologies, I just wondered if you would touch on if that has bolstered, given you ammunition.
I think it's too early to tell, really. The extension is an interesting situation. The original ask was if it was possible to get like a 2-year relief from the PMTA deadline, simply to have a little more time to like get the industry's act together, for one. 4 years was a bit of a surprise. What I've seen really scares me. First of all, the moment that the statement came out, I immediately ended up being a Debbie Downer because I had to tell people, take the weekend, party, like consider it a victory, just like have fun. But on Monday, start thinking about what's going to happen now, because all the focus on the fight has been federal level stuff mostly the past year. That's also where our enemies have been focusing their fight. Now that they know that it's going to be at least a few more years, they're going to increase their fight at the local and state levels. And this is where the industry is generally not very good at juggling hundreds of different bills and hundreds of different cities. So it comes at a really increased cost of being more aware locally. So I see it as a very double-edged sword. I don't think at this point the extension is helping. I'm getting noises from industry stakeholders where they're not really interested in like gearing up for battle again, especially now that they have a breeder. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that breeder is an illusion. If you don't gear up for battle now, you're not going to be ready. And the next legislative season starts pretty much everywhere early next year. Mm-hmm. So take December out of the entire year because nobody ever does anything in December. You're going to be unprepared. So I'm seeing a lot of the old attitude of let's do things the last minute return. The pressure is off. Not very happy with that. Also not very happy with how people are speculating and interpreting what the 4-year extension means and what this sudden embracing of harm reduction means. Thing is, none of us can actually say what it means because, trust me, nobody knows. There's not a single organization out there that knows what Gottlieb is thinking. And if you look at our enemies and you look at their communications within their camps, they too don't know. So it's sort of a level playing field. They're confused. We're confused. We all have some ideas of how to take it from here, but nothing extremely solid. And what I'm seeing with a 4-year delays, I wouldn't rejoice at all at this point because let's face it, big tobacco companies and a few of the really big stakeholders that have resources to actually afford a PMTA for maybe a handful of products, they had no chance of getting through. This might actually give them a chance, but will it give the same chance to the rest of the open vapor product industry? And that's the part where I'm sort of seeing, yes, this is some relief. There's going to be some changes, but are those changes going to be equally beneficial to the entire industry or just for a handful of big names?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's pretty much all I can say about where that direction is going.
Yeah, and I mean there were several pieces of Dr. Gottlieb's statement that made me raise my eyebrows. There was a section that pretty clearly was suggesting something along the lines of a flavor ban of some sort.
We're
going to investigate which flavors are going to do this and this and this, and it's like, oh goodness gracious, we get good news, bad news right along with it. And I completely agree with you that people are unfortunately probably going to sit back like, oh, we've got a victory, yeah. And then,
I know, and that's the part that really irritates me the most, because there is a breeder. It is a real breeder. It is not a 4-year breeder, because you still have to go through all the other compliance. There's still going to be companies who are not going to be able to do that. So now that you have a breeder, you have an opportunity and a chance to actually do all the stuff that wasn't really done properly or not done at all in the past few years. That was the time to actually work harder on it than ever before. And in terms of the characterizing flavor thing that was mentioned, FDA technically already has the authority to ban flavored tobacco products.
mm-hmm.
They haven't really said that they're going to do that. I'm hearing different interpretations. I'm hearing, oh, it's a flavor ban. Actually, if you look at what was said specifically, they're going to have a notice of advanced rulemaking, which is going to seek public input on characterizing flavors. So it's basically up to us to provide them enough data and hard information that shows that adults who quit smoking or switch to vapor products need these flavors in order for this product to be effective. So right now is the time to gather that data, make that data, get enough argument done and get that in, so that when the comment period opens, you can provide data. There possibly maybe even a few listening sessions or a line of communication. That is what should be happening right now, because I don't think they're looking at actually banning all the flavors. I think they're seriously looking at, is this beneficial? Do we need 7,000 flavors? Is that really a thing? So it's up to us to convince them that that's the case. And if Dr. Gottlieb is true to his word, where in his belief, lowering nicotine levels of combustible cigarettes to make them less attractive, and maybe steering people towards a safer alternative, whether that's vaping or heat not burn or other alternatives, steering them towards that where they're not going to touch the nicotine levels, that's great. But once you touch those flavors, there's less incentive for a smoker to switch to vaping. The other thing here is that if you really want to make smokers quit by making the product that they love or are addicted to less appealing, you would have to actually promote the other products. Now, in England, that's what they're doing. Here I'm going to see this as a major problem, because even if the FDA wants that to happen, and it would basically imply that they're way more on our side now than they ever were, what about all these tobacco control organizations? What about all these public health organizations who at state levels are running all these disinformation campaigns?
Yeah.
Those need to stop. Those need to stop immediately. And now they have to basically turn on their word and start promoting it, because that's the only way you can encourage people to switch, if you start lowering nicotine in regular cigarettes. So that's not the sort of authority that the FDA has over states and what happens in states. So this is a rather complicated problem that doesn't have a very simple solution. It's basically the same problem we've always had, except it's changing a little now.
Yeah. I agree. And I think a lot of people will be hesitant when the open commentary section, when it actually happens, especially after what they pulled last time, where they essentially took all the information that we gave them and used it to correctly write the bill and close all the loopholes that they had left. So,
yes, I know. And that's going to be a problem again, except if Gottlieb provides a little more direction on certain issues, maybe they'll actually look more seriously at the data. Unfortunately, I also think that back when the comment period was open, the FDA received a lot of comments that were generally not helpful or generally didn't contain much information. And certainly on the spectrum of science, we had enough science, but now we need science on all these other things. Will they listen to it? Yeah. Catch 22. We have to do it, because if you don't, then there's no crying over spilled milk later.
Yeah.
And if you do, and we get the same situation, then well, I mean, are we going to go back to OMB, or we're going to argue there again? Basically, 4 years extension means that it's been a bit of a reset, and we're traveling back in time, and we're facing pretty much the same uphill battle again.
Yep.
Though at least it's again, at least it's a chance. So yeah, I'm not extremely pleased with it, but I'm also not displeased with it. It's somewhere in the middle.
I kind of see it as we have a road to where we're going to fight, and now there's many forks coming off of that road that we have to choose which one do we want to go down to fight, and which one is the lesser of the evils that we could live with.
Right, or which combination. I mean, it also depends on a lot on resources, involvement, how many businesses are willing to participate and like have meetings, have some studies done, have some science done. Yeah, that's back to the original same problem. How much of the industry, how much of the consumer base is actually engaged on these issues? Tiny percentage. Have we actually seen it grow? Hard to tell. I've certainly seen the number of vapors in general grow, but I haven't actually seen a growth in the layers that are really engaged. So I think we're still stuck with pretty much the same situation. Tiny percentage trying to lift all the work for the entire 100%. So yeah, at some point it might turn into, these are the pathways, these are the ones that are affordable, these are the ones where we stand a chance. Pick one and go with it.
Yeah. Now, I do think there was a great point that Grim Green had a reviewer, or one of his viewers, write in and made a great point that we are all kind of focusing towards one little age group, and if we could focus some attention to those years old and older that have the ties into the government and have the votes, then maybe we have a chance with having more voices heard at that, instead of like my age or what have you.
True. And here's the thing, we've pretty much all been preaching that for many years. Get your parents involved, get your family involved. Hey, your grandmother vapes, great, get her involved. Here's the part where it has constantly been a battle. Get involved.
Mm-hmm.
It's really difficult to get people to do that. And you know what, I can tell you that over the past 2 years, we've lost a lot of people who used to be very engaged. And I can't even blame them for it, because doing this a lot, spending your free time on it, and having it consume eventually all your free time, this is, I can see why people are demotivated and burned out and sort of like done with the whole thing. Unfortunately, I haven't seen a whole new replacement layer move in either, even though we know that the number of vapors are growing.
Yeah.
So again, we go back to what we've been saying also for the past few years. How do you reach out to those people? How do you get in touch with them? How do you get them involved? Well, there's no way for most of us to reach them unless we go through all the brick and mortars. And now again, we have a problem. These brick and mortars need to be engaged. They need to be involved. They need to give a shit. So yeah, 4-year extension, and we're right back to where we started.
Yep.
Or as I so unpopularly privately said in a very sarcastic remark the other day, everybody was so afraid that the FDA was going to destroy the entire industry by just dropping the deeming regs, and yet all the FDA had to do was give them an extension.
Yep. Yep. Give them extension, sit back and watch what happens.
Unfortunately, yes, that does seem to be the case. So yeah, we still have an entire battle in front of us. Most of the same stuff we've done before, a few things a little differently, but at the same time, a lot of us are well more trained now than we were before because we've done it before. We've been through that. We've learned from mistakes. We know things that don't work. We know about things that sort of work. So, in a way, it's I wouldn't say free, but free education.
Yeah.
Yeah, Army. Well, yeah, teaching the revolutionaries and then backing up and surprised when the tactics come and hit them again.
Right.
I had something. It's gone. It's a need.
I just saw it like flop out there. Yeah.
Yep. I think the cat's playing with it.
Life, did you want to ask him about the sort of about his organization question?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
I did see someone out there ask.
Okay, so I'm asking this question for like the 2 to 3 week vapor or the 3 to 6 month vapor, the people that are just joining us because they've seen stuff on YouTube. So could you please like just enlighten like maybe like the 50-cent version of what do you do and how people can help you?
What is not blowing smoke?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, but before Not Blowing Smoke, I ran a California-based trade association, trained and managed the lobby team. At some point, somebody mentioned that there was going to be this smear campaign in California called Still Blowing Smoke, and they were going to spend $7 million on it. 2 days before that campaign launched, I built a website called Not Blowing Smoke because the domain was available. Turns out $7 million does not pay for your social media handles. So they didn't have Twitter, Instagram, Facebook handles for Still Blowing Smoke. So it just basically took all those because, hey, it's going to stop me. We both launched at exactly the same time. And there's a scientific article in the British Medical Journal where it statistically shows how their entire campaign in terms of social media failed and ours took off. I should really frame that and hang that somewhere in my office here. So then all of a sudden, life was really over. Phone just, I had to turn off my phone. I couldn't look at Facebook because of all the PMs. My inbox was stuffed. And it was basically all the same sort of question. Could you do something here in my state? Could you do this here? Could you do this? Could you get? I'm like, well, I spent $12 out of pocket buying a domain. I didn't sleep for 38 hours hacking the website, getting it up and running. I had Jason helping me with the wording and getting the message right. No, I would love to, but that's just way too much. So a few months later, we decided if we're going to do this seriously, we should do it as a nonprofit organization, be transparent about it, give ourselves the coverage, build credibility with other stakeholders, but we would need funding for that. So we started a GoFundMe. We needed initially like $5,000 for paperwork and filing because we decided we're not going to e-file anything. We're going to have an actual lawyer guide us through all the steps, which, by the way, is still our lawyers. Apparently our lawyer is currently running for lieutenant governor in Virginia. Yes. Yeah, we know how to pick them. So raised enough money for that, then raised money for a campaign that we did, No More Casualties. And what happened was, originally what we wanted to be was the PR and education element of the vaping community, vaping industry, however you see those two merge and overlap. Unfortunately, what really happened was we only got to do the PR part for limited portions because there was never enough funding to do it right. At the same time, we ended up operating and doing the same things that trade associations should be doing, except we were doing it in areas where trade associations were not very active or not very funded or just simply non-existent. So it's been this really difficult path where how do we steer the organization back to what we need to do? Education, PR, etc. And I would have to say thank you, Malia Cohen in San Francisco, because you have just given us the exact reason why we only focus on PR and education, because now we get a few months to educate people on why vaping is so important. So I would say at this point, Not Blowing Smoke is very hard trying to go back to its original roots versus picking up all the slack from trade association stuff. Or here's an example. I get at least 3 questions a day from people asking me how to fill out their FDA forms. I had a guy contact me a week ago saying, yeah, I've got this form in Indiana and it asks for a federal ID. What is that? And I'm like, that's your tax ID, your TIN. He was like, I don't know what that is. I don't know where to get it. And I'm like, you're applying for a permit as a wholesaler. He's like, yeah, I'm not starting a business. I'm just starting a wholesaler. I get so many questions about business-oriented things that it's gotten to the point where I physically do not have the time to answer them all. And as much as I can answer a lot of these questions, this is not what our organization does. I have done it for 2 years, and I've always responded to everybody. But at the same time, I think I might have been part of the problem where I gave people the impression that we are a trade association where you can ask questions like this. So,
do you think that might have been initially because when they put out the deeming rules, you put out a web page that kind of
right, the FDA
helped
regs,
explain
yes.
it in plain English, and so now everybody expects you to decipher these documents for them. And
correct. Yes, that I do believe that was part of the problem. Of course, FDA regs never materialized the way we had hoped, because when the website was built prior to the regs dropping in anticipation. Then the regs dropped. We looked at it. We handed it to our lawyers, paid them a bunch of money, and then we ended up with every other lawyer from every other organization going, yeah, we're not in agreement. This is unclear. That is unclear. So where we wanted to take all the basic information, dumb it down into NBS style simplicity. Well, there was nothing to simplify because everything was unclear. So can you still replace a coil? Well, this lawyer says you can. That lawyer says you can't. So if you want to be compliant and you don't want to take risks, then no, you can't. But it's unclear. Then, of course, the R2B lawsuit came up, and we helped fund that and get that going. And then the situation is, well, we have to wait until there is more clarity. Yeah, we never got to do it properly as we envisioned because the regs were so nebulously vague and unclear.
So you were kind of initially you wanted to do education about vaping, but then you became the educator of
the industry,
of the industry and all the legalese and all that, So that sounds like a quagmire.
It was. Plus, of course, you get all these people coming up with projects and ideas, and there's only so much time, so much money, so much effort you can put in anything. Plus, my other board members have regular full-time day jobs, so it's pretty much 20 hours a day. It's me doing most of it, And we did try a few other side projects that never really turned into anything. It has definitely taught us that we should focus at what we're best at, and hopefully the trade associations will like get more members, get a few more states organized, do what they need to do. In the meantime, we'll be still here to help them with PR efforts and all that. Last year we actually spent a lot of money buying into Cision, which is this wonderful portal where you can filter out journalists and basically go, okay, get me all the journalists in this specific area within this radius that wrote about tobacco but wrote positively about it or negatively. And you get to approach them, get to interact with them. They had a system called Haro, Help a Reporter Out, which was really interesting because you would filter on keywords like e-cig, e-cigarette, vapor product, etc. And every now and then you would see something pop up, and it was, well, the Journal of Orthodontists is looking for a 5-page XXX word article on quote unquote the dangers of vaping. So what I would do was basically respond to the help request and say, well, I'm sort of a subject matter expert on these products. I will absolutely help you. And before I start writing anything, let me explain these products to you. And, in a few cases, they decided not to publish anything at all because they started hearing all these things that were very different from the people who had been in their ears. So it helps stem some of the negative press. It helped produce a few op-eds and positive press, but at the same time, using a Cision portal like that and using it properly, you technically need 2 or 3 people who are like on it full time. It's not an easy task, and it's certainly not an easy task if you're a small organization that's underfunded and you need to somehow get enough people and enough time to actually do it. And then you run into problems where volunteers are generally unreliable. I hate to say it, but you can't rely on volunteers for critical issues. So you need double the amount of volunteers in order to spread the risk.
So
but now
half of them show up?
Yeah, or actually do what they said they were going to do at a specific time. Then you double the number of volunteers, and then you end up with the problem that you have twice as many people than you could possibly manage. Now all of a sudden you're managing volunteers 24/7, and at the same time not getting all the other work done. So it's a problem. This industry, and it's what we've always said. This industry needs a few strong organizations, and they need full-time employees. They need full-time people, and it's what our enemies have, except they're better funded.
Right.
Much better funded.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
You want to just tell us about how much you travel around? Because a lot of people, I think, see you as mainly, you live in California and you do a lot of things in California, and it's been said that maybe 80% of the vapor industry in the United States is based in California, so that makes sense, or quite 80%? A bit of it.
Well, I'm not sure whether it's 80%.
Well,
but
okay, let's not get into numbers.
So, yeah, it's a fairly like large chunk.
Right. So anyway, if you could touch on real quickly what you do as you travel around.
Well, luckily, and I'm really happy with that. Travel this year has been way scaled back from what it was last year. Last year we had all these expos and all these advocacy events at expos. And, it was sort of fun. It was great for networking. I learned a lot. One thing I learned is that advocacy on a stage at an expo doesn't actually provide measurable results. As fun as it is to meet up with people, make new connections, say hi to old friends, for the actual work that needs to be done, it's not very effective. Plus, at the tail end of last year, I was at expo number, I lost count, and I literally told to myself, I'm telling the same thing to the same people. Here in the front row are at least 8 people who are very committed. And in the back rows, they're all the same people who never lift a finger. and I'm saying the same thing again to the same group. And I had 82 or 83 flights last year, which almost sort of wrecked me. I was gone more than that I was home. Then at the tail end of last year, some of the organizers of events that always promised us to reimburse us for our flight and hotel decided not to reimburse us, so we ate up a ton of cost on that end. So this year I'm like, nope, I'm not doing expos unless there is something like really specific or really important, or if it coincides with other meetings that actually make sense. So luckily, most of that travel I've been able to cut. Unfortunately, it has resulted in more local travel, which is not a lot easier because San Francisco is just far enough, and these hearings run long enough that instead of staying in like wherever on the East Coast, I'm now staying in San Francisco instead. So yeah, there's still travel, but luckily not the crazy insane stuff from last year, and it's just as well because these flavor bends are keeping me busy pretty much 10 hours a day at this point. So yeah, traveling and at the same time getting any serious work done, nah, that doesn't work.
All right, we are at the end of our hour, so I want to thank you for coming on. Really
sure, you're totally welcome.
I want to invite you, if you'd like to continue the conversation in the next hour.
Sure.
You're more than welcome to come back in about 25 minutes. And
I already invited him, Gizzard.
I understand. I'm just thank you, Fresh. So that being said, I'd like to thank everybody that tuned in tonight, and go watch Fresh in a half hour.
Yes. Conversation will continue.
See you later, guys.
So get off your butts and vape.